My name is Flora Philpart. I'm 69 years old.
And tell me about your family when they came to Deerfield and your birth in Deerfield.
Well, my family came to Deerfield prior to 1947 from Louisville/Midville, Georgia. They worked in farms, and they worked on the farm. We lived in Smith Quarters, right there on the corner of First Court and First Terrace. And I was born in a little corner house right there on the corner of First Terrace and First Court and First Terrace. My mom worked for Mr. and Mrs. Smith Groceries at the time, and they had a farm also. I was delivered by the late Miss Hilda Nose, and I raised in Deerfield all my life.
And how many siblings did you have?
I had, from my parents, I had two of us, my sister Alma, but my mom and dad had a child prior to coming to Deerfield that was about 15 years older than me.
Okay. And tell me about your childhood growing up in Deerfield. What was it like?
Oh, growing up in Deerfield we ate mangoes and guavas and cherries and things of that nature. Basically, it was back in those days. It was a lot different than what it is now. There were certain stores we could or could not go to. We basically went to Palmer's Market, Palmer's department store that was on Dixie Highway to do most of our clothing. There was a drugstore in the corner of Hillsborough and Dixie that back in those days, it's sad to say, but we had to go to the back door to get our whatever our needs were. We had Smith Grocery, had DNR Grocery, things of that nature. But we basically played in the West Side. West Side Park wasn't there. We did playhouses where West Side Park is now. So that's where we basically did most of our playing at and did playhouse and run races and things like that. Went to the bean field on the weekends. I went up in front of DNR Market to catch the bus to go to the bean field to make money. I went to Braithwaite Elementary School from kindergarten, first grade to fifth grade. And then from there to Blanche Ely. We didn't have a high school in Deerfield during that time. So we had to be bused to Deerfield, Pompano to Blanche Ely.
What kind of games did you play as a child?
Hopscotch was my favorite. There were softball games and things of that nature, but most of we did everything on the street. Most of my days we did it on the street. We kickball, hopscotch, playhouse, things like that. Mom and Daddy.
Were the streets paved back then?
Oh no, not back in my days. No, we had a lot of rock roads, and then paved came on later.
Okay. So tell me about Braithwaite and your experience going to school at an all-black school.
Braithwaite, as we know, was an all-black school, like you said. It was great. We knew nothing else. The teachers, we knew the teachers. I remember my fifth grade teacher most. They took time with us. They made sure that we taught and we learned everything. My parents basically were not educated, so I had to get it the best way I could, because when I got home, Mama made it sure she didn't know what I was doing, but she made sure I got homework. But she didn't understand my homework at all, because she couldn't write or read at the time. But Braithwaite was just a loving school that teachers took control back in the day. Got paddles if you needed, sad to say, but it's good to say at the same time because it kept us out of trouble. We had fear.
So on the weekends you used to go to the bean fields and pick beans?
Every weekend, every holiday, any day off, we went to the bean field.
Do you remember how much you were paid?
We were paid from $75 to $1.50 a hamper. That depends on the year, how far it was back. I remember when I first went to the bean field, I was a little girl because my mama grated beans. I don't know if you know what grated beans are, but I'm sure you do. Where you clean the beans and you put them in, get them ready to go. But my mama graded beans, so I was in the bean field from a little girl, had a little tin tub where we could fill them up and then dump them in the hamper, and then till we got it filled. So back then it was like 75 a dollar, and then as I got older, we got $1.50 a hamper. You know, that's the most I remember getting if the beans were good. So we always went to the farm. If they said paying $1.50, we tried to get to that farm.
Were beans the only thing that were grown out there on the farm?
No, they had pepper. There were pepper areas. That's mostly what I went to, beans, because that's where my mom graded beans. So I had to go where my mom went. But there were other areas like peppers, and there was squash. There were orange fields. I remember going to a couple of orange fields as I got older with some of my uncles, going over to Orange Grove and picking oranges, things of that nature.
Okay. And once you went from elementary school to Ely, did you say?
I went after graduating, after coming out of elementary school. We didn't have a middle school in Deerfield at that time, so we went straight from 5th grade to Blanche Ely High, from 6 until. So we were bused to Ely and Pompano.
And what was that experience like?
That was an experience because basically, you know, leaving out of Deerfield, growing up in Deerfield, not knowing, I was one of the wall girls, I think. I just stood on the wall, but basically, it was an experience, basically going from Deerfield to Pompano, not really knowing anybody, but at the same time, got the same kind of treatment because we got paddled if we needed to. I remember my worst discipline. No, it didn't matter if the teachers went out the room and basically something happened, we all got disciplined. We all got our backside paddled. And back in the day, that was real. You didn't tell, you all got punished. You know, so Blanche Ely was an experience. It was a good experience. We were taught what to do, how to do it, when to do it. Came out in the class of 65. That's when I graduated. And I had some experience.
Well, now that you are part of Deerfield Beach High School and you look back on your high school days, what can you tell us about the difference between what it was like when you went to school and what it's like being in Deerfield High School now?
Well, back in my days in Blanche Ely High School, we didn't have cell phones or telephones, but if I got in trouble, my mom knew about it before I got home. How? I don't know, but the message got to her. Back in the days from Blanche Ely to Deerfield, if an adult saw you do something wrong, they discipline you, and when you got home, you got disciplined again. You got your tail beats back in the day. Versus now, you know, of course, discipline, that kind of discipline has been taken out of the schools, and some parents still have gotten it taken out of the home too. So we don't get that kind of connection with the school and with home at the same time. Our parents weren't some of them wasn't as educated, but they supported the school along with the discipline part of it. They made us do work, even if they didn't understand the work. Like I said, my mother and father was separated back then, but my mom made sure we sat down. She didn't know what we were doing, but we had to sit down and do homework. She didn't know nothing like what we were doing. She couldn't understand it. She couldn't even read it. The teachers back at Ely, Blanche Ely, they were great. We had to do, we respected them a lot more. They knew what we were capable of doing. Teachers do now, but we had no other choice but to do what they say.
What kind of activities were you involved with outside of just the school?
I didn't get involved in as many activities. I was with a single mom going to Blanche Ely. We had no transportation until I got old enough to drive. So therefore, I couldn't participate in a lot of the school activities because I had to get on the bus and come back home. My mom didn't have transportation. She didn't even drive. And so therefore, when I got off the bus, after school, I had to basically get back on the bus, come back to Deerfield. I would wash, go in. My mom, after I got in high school, I would basically go in iron for teachers from Deerfield Beach Elementary and do other chores and make money when I wasn't in the bean field. Because my mom basically knew a lot of the people, and I could go over and do some activities to make funds. So I got off the bus, went to work most of the time.
Now, I understand that you were very active in your church.
Yes, and then church on the weekend, definitely, always church.
Tell us about the church that you went to and what you did there.
Okay, when I was growing up, I had a lot of other parents that supported me. So they would take me, I joined Bethlehem Missionary Baptist Church. When I was about 7 or 8, got baptized there on the usher board. And then I would participate with other churches. I would go to church with some of my friends, Bethel AME. I went to First Zion. I just was, we made sure, our parents made sure we went to church. So, but I was baptized at Bethlehem when I was about 9 years old.
And what kind of church activities did you?
I participated in the usher board most of the time as a child.
What is that?
The usher board is basically the youth usher, the youth department. They grew up, but I greeted people at the door. The usher, I greeted them at the door, gave out programs, things of that nature. Smiled and enjoyed, made people feel welcome.
Activities on the weekends, the beach, maybe a ball game. Tell us about what sort of things the community did on the weekend.
There were baseball games at Westside Park as we grew up, but most of my activities was, I didn't have transportation. I did neighborhood, we had dances. I remember the hole in the wall where teenagers went to a dance. It was basically up on Dixie Highway and near and First Street, or First Court rather, Dixie Highway and First Court. We had a little teenage place. We would go to the hole in the wall. I remember the movie theater. There was a movie theater right there in First Court near Dixie Highway also, back in the days. Those were most of the activities where we could go to the movie or the teenage place.
What did you do after you graduated from Ely?
Before I graduated, I must say, I was a teen parent, so I have to admit the fact that I was a teen parent in my senior year, and then I did graduate from Blanche Ely, class of '65, and back in the day then, we couldn't go to day school. So I finished up in my night school at Blanche Ely. And then after I graduated, I married. Then I decided to go to school. I went to Florida Memorial, graduated, got my bachelor's degree in urban services at Florida Memorial. Once I graduated from Florida Memorial, I wanted to be a counselor. And the government, basically, there was a freeze on hiring for counselors. And when I graduated from Florida Memorial with 4 kids, I needed a job like night and day. But before I went to school, I basically did a lot of different works. I worked at Plaster Line, I did housework, and then I went to college after getting married. When I graduated from Florida Memorial, I wanted a job and couldn't find a job. And I got hired with the Broward Sheriff's Office as in communication. I worked communication for 5 years. After communication for 5 years, I became a community service aide. In community service aide, basically I did delayed reports. I worked as a secretary at District 9 Pompano for about a year, and then I went to police academy. I became a police officer.
Tell me about your police academy and your association with Deerfield Beach High School.
Well, from the police academy, I was the oldest in my class. I had kids there that could be my children because I went there at a later years, part of my life. And I thank God because my youngest son helped me make it through the academy. He pushed me to make it. He was a junior in high school, and he helped me go to the police academy, supported me very much, along with my other kids. But he was the one in the house at the time, so he could make me run and help me run. Then, after I came out of the police academy, I worked in Lauderdale Lakes for about 1.5 years. Then I became a school resource officer. After becoming a school resource officer, being a school resource officer mostly in elementary schools for 15 years, from County Line Road in Hallandale, Hollywood, to Deerfield Park, Deerfield Beach, Deerfield Park and Park Ridge. I was a school resource officer where I basically taught DARE and GREAT, the Drug Abuse Awareness Program, and the Gang Awareness Program. I did that for 10 and a half, 11 years.
And then
After I retired from BSO, I was hired here at Deerfield as a security specialist, even though all my kids went to Deerfield High. So I was being the only school that my kids graduated from. I was always somewhat familiar with Deerfield High. And I worked a lot of details as a deputy here, football, basketball. So when I retired from BSO, the principal, Ms. Martinez, already was aware of me along with a lot of administrators. Then I got hired as a security specialist here at Deerfield, where I worked here as a specialist for 10 years. And I just got involved with my kids here at Deerfield. I call myself a tiger buck. Because, of course, I graduated from Ely, but I'm a fully buck right now. I love the kids, I love the school, I love administration. I worked at the football booster. I've been doing that since 2004, prior to me retiring here. Actually 2001, because my grandson was playing football here, and that's when I got involved with the Booster Club.
what has been the best thing that you remember from growing up in Deerfield?
The best thing I can remember growing up in Deerfield, it's just basically just the relationship from the neighborhood. We basically, back when I was growing up, in our days, everybody knew everybody. If somebody needed something, or someone had, we could basically call on each other because we were a close-knit community. That was my best thing I remember.
Was there any tragedies or difficult times that you remember when you were growing up in Deerfield?
Oh, yes. There were times when basically, I remember back in, I'm getting a little young, when we as a community, when the days when we basically, when life changed and we could go into the front door of the drugstore. And for some reason, I remember the activities, the things that happened when we didn't have to go to the back door and we could go in the front door. It seemed like the whole world changed. In the beginning, there seemed like it was harsh hate, but then people grew to change in most cases.
What was the relationship between the white and the black community during segregation?
Most people respected you as long as you stayed where you were scheduled to stay. It's not that they didn't treat you nice or people didn't treat each other nice. It's just there was a line, basically. You had to stay on your border, stay on your lane. You stayed on your right. As long as you were in the right, you were fine. As long as you didn't cross that border. I remember my mother used to clean house, and for the Williams, and her parents owned the dairy, and we always was treated beautiful. It was like I was Mamie's daughters, and they treated us great. And right now, her granddaughter has sent my nephew pictures of me when I was, teenager, going on Easter and stuff, going to her house to have dinner with them. Things that people treated. It was inside. They treated you very nice, and most people did. It's just that there were certain things that you couldn't do publicly.
All right. Mm-hmm. Now, you talked about the dairy. Tell me where the dairy was.
The dairy was right there where Deerfield Golf Course is. Well, it used to be. It's not there anymore. And their house is right there on the corner where the red light at. I think there's a spa. They tore the house down, but there's a spa that was part of their facility. I don't know what that spa is now. But there was a big house right there on the corner. It's Tivoli and Hillsborough. Tivoli and Hillsborough. It was a big house on that corner on the north side. And the dairy was right behind there.
Okay, let's stop right there. that's going to ring, right?
Yeah, the bell's gonna ring in 2 minutes.
Okay. Did you ever go to the Diamond Club?
As a teenager, no, but you know, the Baileys, as an adult, young adult, I did. But as a teen,
I'm going to ask you about
oh, okay.
that. As soon as the bell rings and
Okay.
everybody.
So we off.
Shuffling around.
We off.
Are you all staying?
I
Or do you have to leave?
I can stay.
Okay. At least through, to finish her.
Okay.
Yeah.
We off now. Amy, can you remember that dairy?
Huh?
Do you remember that dairy? Mm-hmm.
There were several of them.
Yeah, but the one that right over where I'm talking about now.
Deerfield Country Club.
The Deerfield Country, right there, where the old country club was. You know, they tore it down now. They're building something else up in there. Right there, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it was a big house there. And Miss Mary, Miss Williams, her mother now owned it. My mom worked clean house for them for years. As a matter of fact, my nephew, I got time to move? Oh, I'll show you. My nephew, her granddaughter, lives in Boca somewhere. And my birthday was in August. And my nephew is a friend because my mom.
Can you send us some of those pictures?
Sure, my my mom used to work for them. And as I said, my nephew, somehow the granddaughter, I have to get her name because it's been years, sent my nephew a copy of a picture of my sister and I just August 29th. She said she was going through her mom's pictures and found.
Good, because I'd like to even get her name and phone number.
I have to get it from my nephew,
Because
but
I'd
she's
like to
in
get
Boca.
the history of that area.
Yes, okay. I have to get my nephew's because he's friends with her on Facebook.
Okay.
And he just sent me a picture of me. I was a teenager, and my sister had, back in the day, I had grown out of the big bows, but we had the big bows. Mama used to dress us up with the big bows in her hair. My sister said, "Where in the world did you get this picture from? And don't you put it on Facebook?" But I put it on Facebook. I put it on Facebook, yes. But it was in front of their house. That's why I was saying there was a big house. They had a beautiful flower garden in front of the house. I mean, they had roses, everything. And we would go up there for Easter because she wanted to see my mom's kids for Easter. We would have dinner. She would fix us dinner and stuff.
Well, good. I want you to say that when we get back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us what you can remember. You know, I've heard people talk about the dairy, but it's been such, and several dairies, but it's been such a long time since the dairies have been gone that I haven't been able to track down, except through you now, the people who were there.
Yes,
If
but
you could give us some photos and that kind of stuff.
yeah, because apparently this young lady, she's married. I don't know her married name. She lives up in Boca, and she's the granddaughter of Miss Mary. But her great-grandmother is the ones that owned the dairy, and she must have been looking through some old photos, and she knows my mom, or she remembered my mom because my mom used to take care of her too.
Right.
And she remembered my mom, so whenever she found pictures, she would send of my sister, because my mom adopted a daughter, and whenever she found pictures, she would send them to my nephew. And my nephew sent that particular one to me. I said, "Where did you get this from?" And he told me where he got it from.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
yes, it was a big one.
Wonderful.
Yes, but we had several. We had another dairy way out west.
Are you?
Yeah, definitely.
And especially from her, since she's right there, front and center with school.
Yes, this was here. This was Butler Farm over here. The school wasn't here. This was Butler Farm.
And tell us about that too.
Okay.
We want to
that
know.
Brooks dairy?
What's that?
Brooks?
No, I can't remember the name of the dairy, but it was right. You talking about the dairy, Mary Kay? I can't remember the name of the dairy, but I know it was right there where the country club was back there.
Do you remember Big John's Little Grocery?
What's the name of it?
Big John's Little Grocery?
No.
It was it was like right in the middle where 95 is, on the other side from the country club.
No, that was basically a grocery store there?
It was, my dad did some building out west.
No, we didn't get to go that far. I remember 4 Point. Is it Phil? You talking about 4 Point? No?
He built Flora Philpart
Okay.
when they redid it.
Uh-huh.
But before that, you go to Big John's little grocery and get treats.
Okay. We didn't get to go that far, sad to say, Amy Kay. We
Tell us what Dixie Highway looked like when you were a child.
When I was a child, I'm going to start from probably the corner of, that I remember, we had Dale's restaurant. There was a little restaurant on Dixie Highway, mostly down what we call the park, okay? And she served breakfast and food and things of that nature. Then we had a little grocery store ran by, oh golly, I just went blank, Mr. Townsend, right there on the corner of, I want to say, Second Court and Dixie Highway. Then we had the Diamond Club. It might have been other little build. Oh, then we had before, right where Mr. Townsend was, we had the barber shop. It was a little stall, 2 or 3 buildings attached together, a little strip. We had the barber shop. And then from the barber shop, I remember the Diamond Club. The Diamond Club was basically where everybody partied at. The grown-ups partied. It was owned by the Baileys. As a child, I remember Mr. and Mrs. Bailey also had a big house on the corner of, not on the corner, but on the street of Second Court. And their big house, I remember going to parties in the back of their house. The grown-ups were at Diamond Club, but we were at the parties in the back of the Baileys. So as teenagers, that's where we went to party at in the back, because they had music back there, and we would dance and have fun while many of our parents was at the Diamond Club. And then further down Dixie Highway, we had DNR Supermarket. But before we got to DNR Supermarket as a child, I remember there used to be, it got torn down, a little movie theater right down the corner, right in the area of First Court in Dixie, but it was facing south. Then we had DNR Supermarket. We had Smith Groceries. We had the drugstore, right, the drugstore in the corner of Hillsborough and Dixie. Then we had another store, I can't remember the name of it, but I remember Palmer's Market, because that's where I used to meet my daddy at when he got off from work on the weekends if he wanted to buy shoes or clothes or something. And Mr. Palmer, he had a little account with Mr. Palmer. So he would meet us, and he knew us by name. You waiting on Hillard, how, Flora? And then basically my dad would meet us and buy us whatever he was going to buy us, because him and my mom were separated. So those are the stores. And then we had the Dairy Queen going across the railroad track. Those are the things I remember about Dixie.
Did you go to the Diamond Club as an adult?
As a young adult, I did. When I met my husband, as a teenager, I went to the Diamond Club. Yes, I did.
And what was it like inside? What does it look like? What did it smell like? What did it
Smell? I felt like I was grown. You had the music playing, people dancing, people drinking, people having fun, you know. But that was my experience. I never went out of town because I couldn't go anywhere. But the Diamond Club was the place that you want to grow up and go to because you had fun.
Did you know Willie West?
Oh, yes, I know Mr. West. I know Mr. West, his wife, the whole family. Yes, he used to sing. Yes, I know him very well. And then they had the Blue Chip up North Deerfield. They had another little club in North Deerfield, we called it, called the Blue Chip. That was another.
Where was it?
That was, if you know where M&W Works is at now, that is just north of there, on the same street. I don't know the corner street, but it was just north of M&W on the corner, called the Blue Chip.
Did you go there?
No, I didn't go. That was the old folks' place. That's mostly where the older folks met. But and Mr. West used to sing there too, I think sometimes.
Okay. Tell me about your association with Mr. Charlie.
Oh, with Mr. Charlie, basically, I knew Mr. Charlie. I knew of him because I'm more longer with his younger siblings, the younger ones. So we grew up. Mr. Charlie lived across the railroad track. I knew Mr. Charlie just by working at Deerfield Middle, but I knew the families all my life, but not I knew of Mr. Charlie, but not Mr. Charlie. But since I became Deerfield High, and Mr. Charlie retired from Deerfield Middle, he is Mr. Deerfield High. He goes to all the football games. He loves basketball, he loves football, and that's his outing. Make sure he comes and he rides the bus with us when he can, and we make sure he gets home after the game. We make sure he come in, sit in. He has a seat right inside the stadium. That's where he sits.
Tell me about the dairy that was up on Hillsborough.
The dairy that's on Hillsborough, I remember my mom working there. Working not at the dairy, but working for the people that own the dairy. And I know it was a dairy, and I know when sometime when they were, we would go, my mom would go, I would go there to have lunch with my mom and stuff, because that's where she worked, and they were so great to us. We would go there on Easter, after we got dressed and after church, we would go up to their house and we would take pictures and things, and we would have dinner with them after church. That's what I remember about the dairy.
Is there anything else about your living in Deerfield Beach as a child or as when you were growing up as an adolescent that you want people to know? Anything else before we conclude?
I basically just worked in Deerfield all my life and went to the bean field, and I became a police officer, worked at Deerfield High, and I love my city. I'm a Deerfield High person. I'm a Deerfield person, born and raised in Deerfield.